This is Glambition Radio, episode number 257 with Sara Yagoub, truth bomber and founder and CEO of Be Cool Enterprises.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. I am still on a high from last week because I got to see my ladies of The Trust. My members flew in from all over the country, and this wasn't even an official meeting. I was over the moon. We had more than half of them join us here in Phoenix. We were at a gorgeous resort. We had incredible conversations. One of our special guest advisors came down to meet us, Lisa Hufford from Simplicity Consulting. But, most of all, the conversation in the room was powerful, but to see the connections and how so many of these women just said, I couldn't miss an opportunity to meet up, even if it was only for one day. That still blows my mind and just is a testament to how powerful these connections and conversations are with these women. If you'd like to learn more, join thetrust.org, and my team can tell you more. One of our members is our guest on the show today, and I'm so excited to finally have her on because the universe has been keeping us apart. And I'm not joking. Like, all these weird things would happen. We actually got online to record this a few weeks ago and kept getting disconnected. I mean, this doesn't usually happen. There's some serious energy here with her, and I can't wait for you to get to know her. You're going to enjoy everything from her story of being raised by African and Indian immigrant parents, going the traditional career path. I think so many of us can relate, right? We have this vision of what achievement is, and then we get into it and everything changes. Everything changes. And today she is founder and CEO of Be Cool Enterprises. It's in Houston, and she and her husband have an air conditioning company, which must be in demand in Houston. Gets pretty hot. But she also runs a referral business. Most of all, I love her because she's a truth bomber. She's an absolute truth bomber. So she and I vibe on the same page in so many ways. It's hard to describe her further. So I'm going to let the interview speak for itself and let you know that Sara and myself are also, is that good English? I don't know. Don't care anymore. We're going to be at Iconic, which is my event, November 3rd and 4th, happening here in Phoenix. And if, let's say that maybe you're interested in the trust. Let's say that maybe you're enjoying these conversations, but you may not be at $1 million, so you can't join the network. Well, Iconic is where you want to be. We are gathering 80 women in a room to have some powerful conversations about your next chapter in the world. What is going on? How can we create huge opportunities from all of this? How can we connect with each other and leave that space completely recalibrated? IconicwithAllieBrown.com is where you need to go and get on the priority notification list. I'll only email you about once a week right now, okay, just to keep you updated, give you details as we have them. But here's the reason you want to get on that list. In past years, we have sold out alone from that list before we even talk about seats to the public. So even if you're just curious, go there, IconicwithAllieBrown.com, and at least get the details, and then you can decide if the event is a fit for you. All right, November 3rd and 4th in Phoenix. Quick shout out to 2 reviews that came in. My team wanted to pull for me from Apple Podcasts. The first is my go-to for real inspiration and advice from KDL77. I've been a listener of Glambition for several years now, and I find that while I lose interest in other podcasts, Allie keeps me captivated and always wanting more. From her powerful presence and down-to-earth approach to life and business, to her incredible guests and riveting conversations, I always know I'll get something that can help me succeed as a woman in my own business and life. I love riveting. I'm going to use that word, riveting. Thank you. And then Chulu by Design wrote unique, insightful, and impactful. I discovered Allie in 2020 through one of her guests, and I was hooked ever since. Binge listened to all her previous episodes. She challenges me to have the audacity, I love that, to think bigger and challenge myself. I am not able to work with her at the moment, but it is certainly my goal to grow my business to the level that I can. For the time being, I listen every week and learn from her and her guests from afar. And she's from Zambia. Very cool. Thank you so much. We get the reviews. We appreciate the reviews. We read and share the reviews. It means so much to us. So take a moment and you will be rewarded. I greatly appreciate it. Now, get ready for a powerful conversation with Sara Yagoub. Sara, where are you right now?
I am in Houston, Texas.
At the house?
I am, yes. I'm at my home office and looking outside, birds chirping, and there's sunny skies, so I am happy.
You know, I actually didn't realize, do you guys have an office that you work out of, or you don't anymore, or what?
We don't anymore. I mean, we did for a little bit, but once COVID hit and there was really no reason for it, I was just like, you know what, let's just take it back home, and we love it. And, you know, our employees come here and work because I literally have 3 offices in my house, and it's working well for us for now.
Yeah, it works. So I'm so excited to have you on. And we have been kept apart, I think, having this interview for a few months. We had some weird things happen on the last interview. Like we kept getting dropped, and I'm like, are we being banned? Like what is happening? But you know, you and I have had some really interesting discussions. You're such a fascinating person in general. And I feel like we're kindred spirits in many ways, you know, one which I'd like to talk about at some point. I know in your story, we both kind of went out for that success kind of within the matrix, right? That we saw and thought, okay, that's going to be me. That's going to be my career. Yep. And then have found ourselves in very different places. So, but I'd love to start, if you may, back actually to your history with your family and coming to America.
Sure. And I love what you said. I do think that there were some forces keeping us apart, but maybe on the other side is like the universe was waiting for the right time where people were ready. But I love that. My background is kind of, you know, there's so much complexities to it, but the brief version is, I was born in India and my mom's Indian. And then we moved to Africa. My dad's African. So in India, they have a caste system, like a hierarchical system. And so my mom was considered high class, and my dad was like a darkest black as black can get, you know, African, and he was from Muslim descent, which was like a total taboo. So we were not welcome in India once that my parents got together. So we fled from India and moved to Africa. So my dad, the country that he's from, was a beautiful, you know, country, but like
what country?
It's from Sudan, which now Sudan is like banned, like we can't even trade with them, and they're, you know, marked as a terrorist country. But long ago, I mean, Sudan was a beautiful country and it had a lot of beautiful resources, like a lot of African countries. And when you have these underdeveloped countries and a developed country comes in to colonize them with like the Trojan horse that is communism dressed up as socialism, ideally to the people of the country, it seems like a beautiful thing because a lot of the infrastructure that they don't have and all that, they look forward to, you know, becoming a developed nation. But as what happens with many African countries is these, you know, other colonies come in and they corrupt the government. And so then what happens is the country is raped of all her resources. And then the people are left there. And the only way that they can survive is to rely on the government, which has become corrupt. And so unfortunately, that's what happened to my dad's country. And so obviously that's not conducive of like raising a family. So we had to get out of there. And so we applied for what was called a lottery. Here we play the lottery for like riches, but in Africa, you play the lottery for survival to go off to developed countries that allow you in as a refugee. So America was gracious enough to let us in. And so that is what brought us here to America. And so
how old were you?
Probably 5 years old at the time. So maybe 5 or 6, you know? And so most of us, like when we were immigrants and we come to America, most people want, you know, the parents want us to become doctors or lawyers or make a good living for ourselves just because they have left, you know, the scarcity of their nation. So they want us to come here and, you know, make a name for ourselves. So my parents brought us here for us to become a doctor, and that was their goal. And
there was no question. We're going to America so you can become a doctor.
There is no question. That's what people always ask me, did you want to be an entrepreneur from the get? And I was like, no, I did not have a choice. Entrepreneurship fell into my lap. I wanted to be a doctor because that's all I was raised to be. And, I love science as a kid. So it wasn't something that was against what I was about. I love science and I did really well in school and I didn't even try. So that was the trajectory. I went to pre-med here in Houston. And I actually got accepted into a program that was the med school, a prominent med school here, Baylor College of Medicine, worked with University of Houston, and they had an academic associate program. And so they accepted me into it. And the way that this worked is as an undergrad, I was allowed to follow doctors and shadow them to see what it is they do. So you really get a feel for the work. And so I love that I got to do that because it really opened my eyes up to the healthcare industry. And so the doctors that I followed, lots of really great doctors and stuff like that. But I really quickly discovered that the healthcare industry was not for me.
Do you want to share why? Was it the protocols of it? Was it a lack of humanity? What was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of red flags, but, besides being really good at science, I was a philosopher. I always love to ask questions. I mean, I question everything. And so when we got into shadowing the doctors and we would have patients come in and they have these symptoms, I always wanted to question. And me, I'm not good at keeping my mouth closed. So I would start to ask questions about other symptoms and all that. And then I would always get reprimanded because the healthcare industry, if you've ever been part of it, that it's not really designed to promote health. It's kind of let's treat the symptoms as quickly as possible without really being concerned about the root cause. And so when I would come in and ask questions and these doctors were like, we don't have time. We have all these patients that we need to see, and they were following the system because they were right. They did have a lot of patients to see. They didn't have time to sit around and talk to their patient for a few minutes to find out what's really at the bottom of everything. Yeah. So there was just, the lack of the root cause analysis. And so being that kind of person, that was a red flag. And for me, the thing that drew the line where I was I cannot be in this was that it was a children's hospital and we had a patient that we were seeing and I could tell that she was uncomfortable with the person that brought her in who he said he was her dad. There was a language barrier issue, so we couldn't really talk to them. And I could tell intuitively that this girl did not want to be left alone with this man. She came in for being hit, abused, or whatever. And so the doctor, as we were leaving the room, and I did not want to leave the room, was we have to go to the next patient. And I said, I feel uncomfortable leaving her here. And he was just very nonchalant and saying, okay, we did what we had to do, follow the protocol. We put a red flag in the system. A social worker or caseworker will be assigned, and the system will take care of it from here. But me being, just very intuitive and listening to my gut, I was just I do not want to leave this little girl, but I had no choice. I had to leave. And so I just knew that right then and there, I never wanted to be in a situation where I was so desensitized and that I would follow a protocol and just not really give it much thought besides that. Yeah. And I know, I don't mean to say this to offend anybody in the healthcare industry, because I know there's a lot of really great doctors and nurses that do really care about their patients. And I also still think that the system, there's so many holes in the system that still needs to be worked through so that people can actually, care and take care of patients the way they're supposed to be taken care of.
I think that slip was subconscious because doctors need the lawyers.
Freudian slip right there.
They work together very often. Right?
That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah. No. So what was your next move? How did you tell your parents, and how'd you go from there?
Okay. The thing is, I knew that this was going to be a huge disappointment and it was going to break their heart. So I didn't even tell them because I was I just need to find out my next move that's going to give them some hope that I'm not a complete miserable failure, So I was in Houston, Texas, like I am now. And at that time, and even now, I think Houston was the oil and gas and energy hub of the Americas for sure, but of the world back then. And so I was just let me get my foot into any corporate energy company that I could. And that's exactly what I did. I just found a company that let me in because my degree at that point was in philosophy and biology. They don't care about that. So I started at the very bottom as I think a project admin.
So your mind just went to, okay, if I can't do medicine, where can I make a shit ton of money? Like,
that is exactly right.
And
Like,
that's
what
okay.
else can I do quickly? And I didn't have time to go to law school at that point. I was like, listen, I got to find it out quick. So oil and gas was definitely
making me
it.
laugh so much. You just did that sharp right turn.
That's
Like,
right.
whoop.
That
Okay.
is right.
Oil and gas
And,
it is.
that was it. I mean, especially in Houston, it was a quick in. And, because I had that chip on my shoulder, they weren't going to be proud of me working in oil and gas, making 30 grand a year. So I was like, I took on all the projects. I joke now and call myself a corporate yes girl because I literally would take on all the projects. I would work weekends, holidays. I remember working on Thanksgiving one year because nobody else wanted it. And I was like, I'll do it. So I was able to climb that corporate ladder really quickly. And unfortunately, just like the healthcare system, the higher up that I got in corporate, the more I saw just corruption as well on the higher levels and just a lot of practices that were against my morals, my values, my ethics, the way that I live my life. It was completely out of alignment. But I didn't realize that until I got high enough because I was chasing that success. So I was in that hustle and grind, mentality. And so I would get higher up. And then what happened is like my health was taking a hit. My husband and I were really on the brink of a divorce. Like I did talk to a divorce attorney because our relationship had fallen apart at that point because I was just always gone and I was always working. He was taking care of our 1-year-old child at the time. I was missing all of her firsts. I missed, all her first. And so, when it got to that point where it felt like my world was collapsing around me, I really just stopped and finally, after 10 years of hustling, took the time and space to just breathe, and just evaluate, like, I'm losing everything that's important to me and for what, for this corporate prestige and honor. And I did. I was winning all the awards. It feels like a lifetime ago, so I can't even remember what it's called, but I think President's Club when I was in sales, I was getting so much recognition in corporate, like my ego was getting fed and I was loving it from that perspective. And I'm so grateful that my health really took a dive because that forced me to slow down because I had to take time off work.
Yeah.
And so that is when I slowed down enough just to see like these things that I'm chasing that are ego driven are really, I'm sacrificing everything that's soul driven and purpose driven,
So what was the segue into working with your husband?
So that's when I just realized like my husband was great. He was great even back then, even though we had, bumped heads. And so I was just thinking like, I don't want to let this marriage fall apart. He was also unhappy working for bigger corporate companies. He is an air conditioning technician. So he liked to fix ACs. And in Houston, that was a great career to be in, but he hated working for big businesses. And so I said to him, why don't we take my business management knowledge and then your, AC technician knowledge and like start our own air conditioning business, And so that's what we did. We went into it. He was hesitant at first, but I told him to give me a year. And so I knew that I had to really make this successful in a year because he was leaving a 6-figure salary. I was leaving a 6-figure salary. And so we had to at least make up one of our salaries to sustain the way that we were living. And so that was my only goal going into our business was like, I have to make enough in this business to make up for one of our salaries since we're taking this leap of faith. And so just as quickly as we've done everything else, and since I asked my husband for giving me 1 year to prove that we can do something with this, we were able to take the business in 1 year to the 7-figure mark and then multi-million-dollar level within 18 months.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, that proved to him that this was the way to go. And so that's what we've done. We just, we continued. I took what was working in big business and we put it into our small business. And I don't even want to call it that because it's really, I think what many entrepreneurs sometimes miss is that they see big business as big business and then small business, they feel like they have to reinvent the wheel. And really, big business has a lot of really good things that work. Outsourcing, delegating, putting systems in place, all of that stuff that they're doing, having a customer loyalty program and a referral program. Those can all be put into a small business as well. And that's really what helps drive small businesses forward. And so that's what we did. And that's what helped the business become so successful.
Did you see all those when you looked at his industry, especially, like, I bet every day, even before you thought about going into business with him, I bet every day you're like, my God, if they could just figure out A, B, and C, someone could have like a, $10 million company within a week, like, because I know when Brett and I will look at companies, especially here in Arizona, and I don't know if it's just here, we cannot get contractors. We're ready to spend money. We're ready to work with you, and like the calling back, like they lose your information. Like, I mean, it's not brain surgery. Did you see any of that down there too?
Oh, all the time. That's why when I talk to entrepreneurs, I always tell them, like, listen, if you have any experience in the trades and you're thinking of what business to get into, the trades are it, because yes, there were so many gaps. I mean, my husband would come home and tell me all these stories of like what his businesses were making them do. And I was like, this, from a business perspective, it made no sense. I was like, I can't believe they have one technician running all around town when they can have you in one area localized and they could run more calls, make more money. The customer aspect of things, just like you said, a lot of times you find a tradesperson and you call them the second time around because you need more business, and where they're nowhere to be found, So there's so many gaps in trades. And to be honest, I think there's so many gaps in a lot of businesses, Yeah. Like if you just look at the things that really matter, treating your customers right, doing the work with integrity, customer service, sales that's based on integrity versus like pressure selling, things of that nature, the very basic things that we look for as a consumer. If you look at most businesses, there are gaps in those very basic necessities. And if no matter what industry you're in, if you can fill those gaps, there's no reason why your business can't be a success. Because as consumers, that's what we want and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. How is that for your marriage, where you're definitely the boss, right? I mean, you're CEO because your husband loves to. God, it must be nice being married to someone who could fix shit. That must be awesome.
I wouldn't take it any other way. I tell you, I've been married before, and I will tell you, this is a game changer, ladies. I mean, it's not on the list for most girls when they get with somebody, but once you've been married and like there's so many things that break down, and it's so good to have a handy man.
I'm sorry, I just needed to make that little side comment. Because otherwise we're always waiting for a contractor. I'm like, this is just like a shelf. Can we do this ourselves? Like, do we need someone? Anyway, and that it's not uncommon for a lot of the women, especially who are in the trust with us, women I work with, that they end up working with their husbands. And sometimes, the woman's often the CEO or leading the company. Tell us a bit about the dynamic and how it works.
Well, I'll tell you something that you probably won't hear from most women that work with their husbands, because a lot of times you hear and it's like rainbows and butterflies. And let me tell you, it ain't it. It's not rainbows and butterflies for us. We have actually had to there was a lot of growing pains at the beginning where we would bump heads, because although I am the boss when it comes to the business aspect of things, Bo, my husband, is very much an alpha and I'm an alpha. So when we talk about the business, we will bump heads a lot. And so what we had to do is we have like a mediator, Suzanne. So Suzanne is between both Bo and I. So if I have something that I need to talk about to him that I know we're going to bump heads on, I will bring it up to her. She'll bring it up to him. So it's very much an intermediary. And that is what has made it very like successful and where it actually works. Because when it comes to the vision of the business and forecasting and all that great stuff, we're on the same page, we're in alignment. But when it comes to some of the day-to-day tasks, Bo is very much a technician. He thinks about how things work. He has like an engineer's mindset. And then I'm very much a visionary, where I see more, instead of the day-to-day, I'm looking in the future as to like where we're going. And so sometimes when we try to talk, there is a mismatch, right? Because he's looking at the day-to-day and I'm looking at the future. And so we can bump heads. And so that's why I think it's like, a lot of times you hear people and they don't really talk about the nitty gritty. And it's like, you have to do what works for you when you're working with your husband. If that means you have a middleman that you go to, and that way you guys can not fight while you're talking about, some of the minute details that really don't matter in the long game.
Yeah.
You got to do what it takes. And then we have a very strict no talking about work policy. So come 6 o'clock, actually during the off season, it ends at 3, but during the season where we're really busy, we come 6 o'clock in the evening, we do not talk about work anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter what comes up, as long as it's not some crazy emergency, but for the most part, we do not talk about work. We talk about other things just so that we can keep that relationship aspect strong versus getting back to that position where when I was in corporate and it was like two ships passing in the night, like we don't ever want to get back to that place because we've worked so hard to get away from it.
Yeah.
And then I think date nights, regular date nights are like, it's everything, you know, when
you had to start those again Thursday night now, even if we're not, you know, even if we're like having a tiff or something, we still make ourselves go.
It's so important. You actually encouraged me to like make it a weekly thing because, you know, for a while we were just doing, you know, every other week or monthly. And now we're really getting back to like doing it weekly because it's just everything in a marriage, you know?
Yeah. And I like the weekly because then you don't have to discuss it. You don't have to like say, do you not want with night? And then we have to sitter and my mom and, you know, like, I'm just like, it is what it is. My mom knows Thursday night. She's on the clock, you know, and she gives the kids hot dogs or whatever she gives them. I have to let it go. But I know I'm putting on real pants and we're going out. Going out. I'm washing my hair and we're going out to like a nice meal. I'm dying to get into the conversation with you about some stuff that everything going on in the world. There's so many ways this could go, but I think a great place to start with you, and one of the main reasons I wanted you on the show, you know, is the value you add to this conversation along with your business acumen. And that is what we could call the awakening. We could call looking at the world, the great reset right now. Like there's so many factors right now. And you have a bit of a story about your journey into what you call, you know, waking up, kind of like, and becoming more conscious of what's really going on in the world and things that you're concerned about. So I just want to, where should we start with that? Do you want to talk about kind of your journey in that area?
2020 was a catalyst for it. So I will talk about that. But I will say that when we're talking about like awakening and waking up, I think many of us have been having little initiations throughout our lifetime, especially those of us that can talk about it at this level where we know what's going on. I think from a long time, like when I tell you my backstory, the refugee thing, realizing what was happening in my dad's country, going into the healthcare industry and finding out health was not the priority. Even as a child, when I was in elementary school and I would question things and I was told not to question them because that's not how we do it, right? Or, you know, just being reprimanded for breaking the rules or going against the status quo. You know what I mean? I think that many of us that are going through the awakening process right now, and we're so in it, I believe we've had little initiations throughout our lifetime that have led us to really awaken in 2020 or even before. So, you know, I thought that was important to notice because I think some people forget like just how many little things have opened their eyes to like what the world really is. So 2020 for me was a huge catalyst. So after building the business success and everything, I wanted to share with others how I've done it because I was being asked to speak at events and all that. So I started a company called the Referral Circle where I was teaching entrepreneurs in workshops and things of that nature how to grow their business. And so that was alive and thriving in 2020. And then everything happened in 2020, once again, put us all on an evaluation path. Like we stopped, the whole world stopped for a while. And that really gave us the space to evaluate, like, what are your priorities? What are the goals and the things that you're actually, you know, the most important to you? And that's what happened to me in 2020. I stopped and I looked at the things that I was doing. And while the Referral Circle was great and everything I was doing to help other business owners was wonderful, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was a major awakening happening. I mean, I felt it in 2019 before 2020 even hit. And then when 2020 hit, it just really opened my eyes to like all of the, I guess, the systems that we are seeing we're seeing for the first time in a long time, the corruption and the level of deceit in these systems. And then it really makes you question like, well, what do I want to support anymore? And what do I want to endorse? And what do I want to take my energy out of and get away from? You know what I mean? And so that's really what happened to me in 2020 is I gave myself the time to just really observe everything as it was happening without an attachment to it. Because I think that's where some people that really suffered in 2020 and still are suffering now, there is an attachment to like, this is the way things have always been. And I really want to continue because that's comfortable because we've seen it in that way for so long that we don't want to lose it because it makes us uncomfortable. And so in 2020, the greatest gift that was given to me was being able to watch things play out as an observer and just say, listen, I am not attached to the system being run that way anymore.
Yeah.
Like when we saw the political shit show that we saw, or I don't know if I'm allowed to say the S word, but
Shit show or political or what? Oh.
Right. One is definitely worse than the other. That's for sure.
I don't know.
But, like we saw that play out. And I think there was some people that had an attachment to one side versus another. And both sides, no matter what side you were attached to, there was going to be suffering and there was a lot of energy sucked from you. The life was draining from you if you were attached to either side. And so being able to just see it from an observer perspective where you're just like, I see the red flags on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I vacillate between, I know when I get kind of caught up, that's where I lose my power, and I have to take that breath and rise above it, and used a good word, which is, be unattached to everything. And I think when everything started happening early last year, I was very attached to like, oh, this is wrong, that's wrong, they're crazy, this is crazy. And then little by little over the year, I just kind of pull up above everything. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Like, like every party, every person, and so detached from it. And there's such a power in that. There's such a power where you kind of disconnect and rise above that. And for me, it's just been looking at, what do I have control over? My family, my individual health, my business. And it's very interesting that all those things are very unplugged now from systems that they may have been previously plugged into.
Yes, I love that. And I totally agree with you. I think that a lot of what we're seeing play out and you mentioned the word matrix before, and I love talking about it from that perspective, because if you see it as a matrix and you see that matrix seems to be crumbling, because that's how I see it. I see the matrix as it's crumbling and it's losing its power. And so, like you mentioned, what that matrix wants to do is just have us plugged in as much as possible because it knows it's losing its power. So it has to get its power from somewhere. And so as much as it can, we can see it. There are so many messages right now, propaganda, rhetoric, that is inviting you to disempower you, right? It wants you to plug in so that it can take your power from you and keep the system going just a little bit longer because the system knows it's crumbling. And so I think at any point, I believe this for sure for us, I mean, we've seen it, that you can unplug and say, I do not consent to participating in anything that's going on in this matrix. And that doesn't mean that we're not seeing it, because that's what a lot of people think, that means you live in la la land and just pretend like what's happening in the world isn't happening. You don't have to be that in that place. You can observe it. If you can observe it, that's okay too. Because there's times where I will be like, listen, too much craziness is going on. I'm going to retreat into my beautiful, peaceful bubble. And I'm just going to pretend like it's not there just so that I can get my power back.
I go into airplane mode. Right. For like days.
I love that. Yes. I actually was thinking about getting a shirt that said airplane mode, because I was going to tell my husband on days you see me wearing that, don't even tell me about what's going on. I don't want to know.
Does that too. And he'll know I'm unplugging. He's like, well, did you see the bubble? I'm like, stop.
Yes.
Don't tell me.
Yes. And it's important that I've told Bo that too. I told him, I said, listen, when the system knows it can't get to me, it's going to use you to get to me. So I need you to get on board and unplug as well with me, because I don't want that system, my bubble that I have that protects me, and my family and my home, it's very sacred to me. So I am very conscious of what I allow into my bubble. And that means in every form, right? TV, radio, friends that come over, family that comes over. I mean, people know that I have this like bubble and it's sacred. And so if you're going to come at me with some craziness, and I'm not inviting you in, you're going to see your way right back out. And it's great, because once you establish those boundaries, you see that a lot of that stuff doesn't even come into your reference unless you want to look at it. You know what I mean?
Right. If you prefer to be outraged, you can check back in at any time.
If that's how you want to get down, you can get down like that. That's all right. You can.
And like you said, sometimes we got to know. And then other times, I mean, it's just this endless cycle. It's just like, la, 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 la. Yeah. And so how has that changed how you view success? How has this year changed how you view your vision, your future, your purpose? Because I know it has.
I mean, this is such a great question, because I'm still in the process of evaluating everything that's changed for me. But success has been one of the major things that's changed for me, because I feel like before 2020, I was always chasing success, and the goalposts kept moving. It didn't matter, what level I reached. Even when I hit, it's funny because I'm about to actually have another interview where I'm going to talk about the fact that I call it the saddest millionaire, because when I hit the 7-figure mark, which is a milestone for a lot of business owners, and you think that that would be something that makes you so happy and you feel accomplished. But for me, when I found out, that began something that in the spiritual world, they call it the dark night of the soul, and you have lots of them. But that was one of my dark nights of the soul, which, if you don't know what that means, all it means is just something that you have built in your head and put on a pedestal, and you reach it, and then you realize it's not what you thought it was. That is what happened to me. It was something that was such a huge milestone that I built up in my head to be this huge thing. And when I hit it, I realized I did not feel fulfilled. I didn't feel better than, I didn't feel successful. And so what happened in 2020 was just that really came back to me once again, was that I was starting to get into that success mindset of like still chasing, still growing in order to fulfill like a void. And in 2020, I realized the voids had nothing to do with success. The voids had to do with me not evaluating and not taking the time to go within and always looking for things externally. And so 2020 forced me into going within just to see, what's there, to face the fears that I've always had, to face the void. And in doing so, I've received like the most beautiful gift. But let me just say that it's not all rainbows and butterflies, because when I did go within and I saw some of the things that have been like plaguing me for lifetimes, to be honest, it's more than just in this lifetime. It was a very hard time, and it was extremely uncomfortable. But I'm so grateful, because having gone through it and now coming out on the other side, now that stuff is truly healed, so that I have more space to explore and to actually serve and to be better for myself and for humanity.
What type of, I'm curious. And I think for some people listening going like, wow, this, what you're speaking of, I mean, it's such a huge transformation. Like you're saying, you literally were undoing past lives and stuff. What tools or resources or methods did you choose to use or recommend to, if people are listening right now going, gosh, I think maybe I have some stuff to clean out. Maybe that's part of my problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I believe all of us that are here that have not ascended, we do have that stuff to clear out for sure. And so for me, the one thing that I would say everyone should start with if they're wanting to go down this path is definitely meditation. And here's why: because the other tools that you're going to use require a meditative state. And that means that it requires you to be able to control your mind and get present in the moment without thinking of the future, the past, whatever else. We have to be able to come to this place where we are able to get grounded in the present moment. And so I would suggest for anyone wanting to go within to start off with a meditation practice where don't go in with the intention of, I have to clear my mind. Go in with the intention of just taking that time to be mindful and see what thoughts come up. And then you build on that. It's a spiritual muscle. It's not something that you just come into and you're just like, okay, I'm going to clear past life trauma. No. First, we have to get into a meditative mindfulness state so we can see what the mind is going to bring up. So what does the mind bring up? The mind brings up a negative self-talk. Okay, I'm never going to be good enough to get this, or I don't have enough time for this, or I'm never going to have enough money for this, or I feel pressured by my friends or my family to do X, Y, and Z. Whatever comes up, that's how you know what you need to heal. So as you meditate, whenever a thought comes up, if you notice all your thoughts that are coming up are like business related, you can't shut off that business side of your mind that keeps talking about the business stuff that you need to do. That's what you write down, because that's how you know that's the stuff you need to work on. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the stuff that's getting in the way is what you need to be aware of.
Exactly. And then from there, that's where you'll know, like, okay, if everything I'm talking about is work related, all right, what can I do in my workspace to get some of this stuff that is obviously on my mind off of my plate so that I have some space? When you start to create just a little bit of space, you will be guided to the next step or to the next level. These things are so important because this is how you heal. And a lot of times when you look externally, there's so many external forces that are telling you, you need me to heal, or you need me to heal. And then you start to get overwhelmed because you're like, okay, now I need to talk to a meditation teacher. Now I have to talk to a spiritual teacher. Now I need an
God, it's like
guy.
This crazy referral circle. Yeah. Like, and I've cleared my Akashic records. Now what the hell do I need?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Like, oh, now you got a chakra cleanse. Now you got some sound healing you got to do. No. Calm down. Like, I need you to release the need to have complete control, because that's part of this, right? And just go within, because you will be guided, and your guidance will be so clear, but know that it comes in a whisper. So if you're so busy chasing success and chasing wealth and chasing the new cryptocurrency and chasing Clubhouse, okay? And not that any of these things are wrong, right? But if you are so busy in those things, you have no space to allow the proper guidance to come through, and you don't hear it when it does come through, because it is a whisper.
Yeah. That's been my gift this year. I think just getting super, selfish isn't the word, right? Because it's not selfish at all. But that's like number one. Number one is space now for me. Yeah. Number one is space. Even when my team may not understand, my clients may not understand, I know what I need. I know what my body needs. I know what my mind needs. And when I operate from there, I am unstoppable.
Yep.
It's this unbelievable feeling where none of this stuff bothers me then outside.
Yeah.
And if I don't honor that, I get sucked back in. And some people look at this also as the 3D world versus the 5D, right? 5D is my bliss. I'm tuned in. I'm in flow. Magic just happens. Problems are solved when I take a nap. Like it's this bliss. Like I just want to live there. And then you get sucked back though. If I know for me personally, could be different for some, everyone has different tolerance levels. But like if I know exactly the number of calls that if I get overscheduled, I am sucked back into like this banality of 3D business.
Yep.
It's really like this. I think we're inventing the new way to work.
100%. Yes. And actually you made a good point when you're talking about selfish. Like whenever I talk to women that I mentor, I always tell them we need to get out of this concept of being selfish is like, taboo or has a negative connotation, because you nailed it when you said selfish. We have to become selfish, because that's the only way that we can really have enough self-awareness. Like for you, when you discover, when you are selfish and you take that time for yourself, you become aware of the fact that, okay, 5 calls for me or 6, whatever the number is for you, is where I hit my limit, right? If you do not take the time to focus on yourself, you won't have that awareness. And then you will be, expendable. You're going to give all your energy to other people and let other people dictate what they need from you. And then what good are you for yourself or the world, right? You get burnt out. You get back into that mode of just, you're not really showing up the best that you can. So I do think that we need to start looking at selfishness as a good thing, because it helps us to become more self-aware, more self-reliant, and it empowers us and takes us back to, we're reclaiming our power back from all the avenues that it's being drained out.
Yeah. And there's such power in that. There's such power in saying no to Clubhouse. There's such power in, I remember seeing that and I'm like, geez, that is the last fucking thing that I want to be on right now. I think it's cool. I have a little FOMO, right? Yeah. I'm using this as an example because it's one of those new things. Everyone's like, oh, I need to be on there. Yeah. And I just got really clear with myself and knowing, you know what, maybe I don't look as cool not being on there, but I'm very clear that I want to be offline more right now.
Yeah.
I want more time with my children right now. And I know my channels to get clients. That's not lining up with my goals personally. So see, ladies, the clearer you get right now, you will be supported. This is the gift in this. I want to bring this to everyone. I'm like floating off the floor as I'm saying this. And I'm getting really emotional. Like you don't understand how amazing it can be when you detach from the rules, from the frameworks, from all these things that it's very interesting. We all want to start a business to do things our way and for the freedom. And then we just plugged back into a new set of rules. We plugged back into new expectations. We plugged back into, we're supposed to work 9 to 5. And I sucked back into that too, because when I hired full-time team again, I kept thinking, well, I should have pants on and be at my desk at 8:30 then, I guess, like I should be. And now it's been this beautiful allowing this year of saying, you know what? No, Monday mornings, it's hiking day, and Fridays, I don't have calls. That's my day with my kids, and we do a field trip, and it just giving ourselves little by little, if you need to, that permission again to tune back in, and you feel your way into the gifts that are here right now.
I love that.
And that's what I've really heard that through you. And what's wild, Sara, is, you shared with me when I saw you here, I think it was back in the fall, you were saying some big goals that you've set. And you thought actually originally you're like, we're setting this big goal and I'm going to suffer. My family's going to suffer. We're all going to suffer. We get pulled in, we're going to hustle. We're going to hustle till it hurts. And then you decided, no, that doesn't fit what I want to create this year. But results just happened anyway.
Yes, that is so true. And I think that's part of like what's happening right now is that as you're unplugging, the matrix, the system, it knows when someone's unplugged, right? As long as you're plugged in and you're playing by their rules, they're happy. They don't care about you. But the minute you unplug, they will find an avenue to get you plugged back in. And so that looks different for different people. For some people, it might be success. For some people, it might be money. For some people, it might be
Clubhouse.
I was just literally talking to a lady who told me she spends 6 to 8 hours a day on Clubhouse, and she says she's exhausted. And I'm like, no wonder. I call them consciousness traps, because I really do believe that that's what it is that it's this portal that steals your consciousness because you are looking into a screen. Now, no matter what the screen is, right? And as long as you are sucked into that screen, they are extracting your energy, your life force energy directly from you. I
think we need some type of graphic, like you see the green energy being sucked in. And by the way, those of you who are on Clubhouse, we're not, again, it's a tool, but like any tool, it can be a distraction. Yeah. Netflix is a distraction. You know what I mean? Like anything can be a distraction. Just be very conscious of the time that you're committing and what's your ROI? Yeah. Is this getting you business? Is it worth it? And then, set a limit. Be focused.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when I talk about, I have a free thing online right now, and it's called the Unplug Challenge. And I'm not asking for any money or anything from it. I just want people to start watching it, because when you start to become conscious of how you feel from these things, then you can start setting limits to them and you can use them to your benefit. Technology and Clubhouse and Instagram and, podcasting and all of these things, they can be tools and they can bring so much value to your life, right? And they can they can empower you. However, on the flip side, they can totally do the opposite. And it's up to you. You have the power to determine, is this thing going to be for my best benefit and the benefit of humanity? Or is it going to consume all of my life force energy? You totally have that choice.
You make it heavy. Consume all my life force energy.
Listen,
it's like I'm
not going to sugarcoat anything, because
it's so true.
At the end of the day, that's what it's doing. It is taking away your energy. And that's all. When you have all of your energy, that's when you feel empowered. And that's when this life becomes easy and it becomes the game that it really is. When you let other people steal that energy from you, this life becomes all consuming. It becomes so hard. You never have enough time. You don't have enough energy. You're tired. Your relationships fall apart. You got to turn to drinking and all that stuff. You don't have to live like that. There is an alternative.
Yeah. Sara, before I ask my last question, you mentioned the Unplug Challenge, and tell us where to find that and also where people should go to follow you.
Sure. So I hang out on Instagram at Entrepreneur Sara. And then if you like what I'm saying, I am sharing my awakening journey and everything that I'm going through. I am sharing it because that is my next part in this game that we call life, is to just share the things that I'm going through in hopes that it will help you out as well. And so that is going to be released on a podcast called Renegade Revolution Radio that is set to be released in May. So you can find me there. But at Entrepreneur Sara on Instagram is where I play and where you'll find all my stuff.
Yeah, just be ready if you click on her stories.
And I warn you, when you go to my profile, you'll see on my page, on my Instagram page, is all the nice stuff that you want to hear. But on my stories, yes, it is. It's not censored. Well, it's censored for a bit, but yeah, I go hard on my stories. So just be prepared.
No, it's all. Kudos to you. I'm like, oh, there's something I want to say, but she said it. Okay, like so she's sharing that information too. Just real down, raw. That's why we love you.
Yeah.
Then my final question is, for all the women listening, and there's women listening around the world, all entrepreneurs or want to be an entrepreneur, 3 great pieces of advice. These can be quick tips or longer, just whatever is coming up right now.
Sure. So number 1, I would say is just follow your intuition and trust your gut. And I know that's kind of cliche, but I think we undervalue how important our gut is, right? Like there's something like 100 million neurons in your gut. And so that's brain cells. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes when our rational mind, which is limited, doesn't really know the answer or doesn't know what to do, our gut does, because it's unlimited. It's tapping into a higher source. And so I think it's real important that we really trust our gut when it comes to making any type of decisions, for sure. And then I would also say, number 2, to build this, your spiritual muscle. We kind of talked about that here, but the chaos that we're seeing play out in this 3D world, in the matrix, right? Even if you choose to unplug from it, it's chaotic and it's going on in the background. And so the more that you work on building your spiritual muscle with the things we mentioned, like meditation, hypnosis, mindfulness, just becoming self-aware, the stronger that you get. And people go into things like this and think like, okay, I'm supposed to know myself and all that. But we live in a system that's trained us to forget who we are, right? And to disempower us. So in order to get back to your essence, you have to build that spiritual muscle. And so that comes with practice. And so you go in there and you try it. And if you try it once and it doesn't work, don't give up, right? Keep trying every day, because the more you train, the stronger that muscle will become. And then the last thing, and that's kind of what we talked about here as well, is just protect your energy. All right. I know Ali said it was heavy, but it's your energy is your life force. And there are so many avenues right now where it can be depleted if you choose, but you ultimately have the option to keep it, right? To call all your energy back to you. So it's how do you protect your energy? 3 easy steps. Set the intention, right? If you don't make the intention for what you want to happen to your energy, someone else will set the intention for you. And you are consenting to giving it away if you don't set the intention for yourself. So always start every day with setting the intention for how you want your energy to be utilized and how you want to protect your energy. And then hold your focus. Laser focus is a gift. Like the more that you can focus and learn how to not allow the distractions in, the stronger that your energy force will become. And enforce your boundaries. What Ali and I were talking about today with saying no is when we start to say no to the things we don't want to become part of our reality, we say, that's not my reality. That thing will not become your reality, because you have more power than you know. And the system has been built to make you forget about your power. So whatever you say no to and you revoke your consent from it will not become your reality. But you have to remember to enforce that boundary every single day with everything that you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. We need to do like a 5-day workshop immersion. People's heads would be exploding.
I mean, these things are so important, especially when we're going into what we're going into. I mean, it's just that we've only seen the beginning, So it's like these things, if people do it, this process will be a lot easier. Now, we can't make everyone do it. There's some people that are just going to refuse, but those who are listening that want this stuff, I mean, it's out there for them to get it. And so I just hope that they listen.
Yeah. Sara, thanks for just being who you are and bringing your gifts to the world. And I have no doubt that much of what you're sharing is exactly the reason you are here at this time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. And thanks for everything that you're doing also, because I know that you're also leading the way and pioneering what is going to be like the best era of humanity. And I know it and I feel it and I just can't wait to be there. So I'm happy that we're ushering this in together.
Yeah. Apparently we bought our ticket. We didn't even know it. We wanted to be here, right?
Every day I ask my higher self, I'm like, did I really sign up for this or did you just throw me in here? Because I don't know. I don't know if I would have signed up for all this.
Sounds great. I'll pack a bag. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Ali. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.